15 genius British gadgets from the 1960s that transformed everyday life. The 1960s in Britain wasn't just an era of bold fashion, new music, and cultural change. It was also a decade packed with clever little devices that quietly reshaped everyday life. Kitchens ran smoother, mornings felt easier, and homes became more comfortable thanks to a wave of practical, forward-thinking inventions. Looking back at 15 genius British gadgets from the 1960s that transformed everyday life reveals a time when engineering met creativity, and ordinary households became testing grounds for the future. These weren't luxury toys. They were tools that genuinely changed how families lived. 15. The electric kettle with automatic shutoff. Britons have always taken their hot drinks seriously, so when kettles began featuring automatic shutoff mechanisms, it felt like a small miracle. No more standing guard over the stove. No more burned kettles or wasted electricity. This new feature came from simple but clever engineering, a thermostat that sensed steam and clicked the device off the moment it boiled. At a time when kitchens were growing busier and families needed appliances they could trust, this upgrade was a lifesaver. Today, it's completely normal, but in the 1960s, it felt delightfully futuristic. 14. The teas maid. If any invention could be called British to the core, this might be it. The teas maid combined an alarm clock, a kettle, and a tiny teapot into one tidy bedside machine that brewed tea the moment you woke up. Early models existed long before the 1960s, but this decade is when they truly took off. People loved the convenience and the charming novelty. It felt like something from a sci-fi film, waking up to fresh tea without ever leaving bed. The teas maid became a staple gift item, especially among couples setting up their first homes. 13. The compact transistor radio. Before the 60s, radios were large pieces of furniture. But when pocket-sized transistor radios hit the market, Britain's relationship with music changed forever. Teens could finally carry their favorite stations wherever they went, to the park, the bus stop, the beach, or the back garden. Brands like Roberts, Bush, and Pi became household names. These radios also helped fuel the growing pop culture wave sweeping through Britain. Without the transistor radio, the soundtrack of the decade, everything from the Beatles to local BBC broadcasts, wouldn't have traveled nearly as far. 12. The spin dryer. The spin dryer might not sound glamorous, but for 60s households, it was a game-changer. British homes were smaller, space was limited, and long, damp winters meant hanging clothes inside for days. The spin dryer tackled that problem head-on. It removed excess water quickly, making laundry easier to dry even in cramped flats. It also used less power than full-size dryers, which appealed to families on a tight budget. This simple device bridged the gap between old-fashioned manual washing and the fully automatic machines that were rising in popularity by the decade's end. 11. Color television sets. Color television officially launched in Britain in 1967, and families across the country were mesmerized. For the first time, major events, sports, comedies, and dramas arrived in living rooms bursting with color. Although early sets were expensive and often reserved for families who saved carefully, they symbolized a modern future, a world where entertainment felt richer and more immersive. The BBC's color broadcasts of Wimbledon and other major programs showed Britain just how much more magical TV could be. Today, color TV is ordinary, but in the 60s, it felt like stepping into a new reality. 10. The electric carving knife. When the electric carving knife appeared in British shops, it instantly became a symbol of modern domestic confidence. Suddenly, Sunday roasts looked cleaner and more professional, and anyone could slice meat effortlessly. The knife hummed as its double blades glided through beef, turkey, and even crusty bread. It felt like a luxury, yet it was practical enough that many households embraced it enthusiastically. This gadget also reflected the growing desire for convenience that defined the era. People wanted to cook well without complication, and the electric carving knife was a helpful, stylish answer. 9. The two-slot toaster. Toasters existed well before the 60s, but this decade saw safer, more efficient pop-up models become standard across Britain. The two-slot toaster brought consistency to breakfast. No more burning toast under the grill. No more hovering anxiously over bread that refused to brown evenly. With a simple lever, families could enjoy predictable results every morning. Some models even introduced better insulation and crumb trays, making them cleaner and safer. For many households, this wasn't just a gadget, it was a little upgrade that made everyday routines smoother and more enjoyable. 8. The food processor. Kenwood chef attachments. The Kenwood chef was already a favorite in British kitchens, but the 1960s transformed it from a simple mixer into a culinary multi-tool. New attachments helped households mince meat, whip cream, mix dough, puree ingredients, and handle meal prep with ease. This gadget represented the growing excitement around cooking at home, especially as recipe books and television food programs inspired families to experiment. The Kenwood chef became part of the identity of a modern kitchen, a sign that cooking didn't have to be slow or exhausting. It set the stage for the convenience devices we rely on today. 7. The handheld home hairdryer. Salons had giant hooded dryers long before the 60s, but handheld home dryers became widely accessible during this decade. They were lighter, safer, and far more convenient. Women who previously set aside large chunks of time at the salon could now style hair easily at home. Teenagers loved them too. 60s hairstyles demanded volume, curls, and movement, and a handheld dryer helped bring those looks to life. This was more than a beauty tool. It represented confidence, independence, and the culture of self-expression that defined British youth during the decade. 6. The record player with auto-changer. Record players with auto-changer technology were a dream for music lovers. The idea was simple but brilliant. Stack several vinyls on the spindle, and the machine would play them one after another. This meant fewer interruptions and smoother parties, especially during gatherings where music set the mood. Auto-changers also helped families enjoy longer listening sessions without constantly getting up to flip discs. As British music boomed in the 60s, from rock bands to folk singers, the auto-changer became an essential part of home entertainment, keeping the soundtrack of the decade spinning effortlessly. 5. The portable gas room heater. British homes in the 60s could be chilly, especially older properties without central heating. Portable gas heaters became a welcome solution. They warmed individual rooms quickly and were easy to move around. Families often used them to heat only the spaces they occupied, which made them energy efficient at a time when budgets mattered. These heaters improved comfort during winter months and became particularly popular in coastal and rural areas where indoor temperatures could drop sharply. They weren't complicated or flashy. They simply made homes cozier when families needed warmth most. 4. The slide projector. Long before smartphones and digital screens, the slide projector was the king of home photo displays. Families gathered in darkened living rooms as holiday snapshots, wedding moments, and childhood memories illuminated the wall. The experience was communal, heartfelt, and sometimes hilarious, especially when a slide popped in upside down. For many, this gadget turned everyday photos into treasured events. It also encouraged people to preserve their memories more carefully. In a time when photography already required thought, the slide projector elevated those still images into something that felt shared and meaningful. 3. The Polaroid instant camera. Although the Polaroid system was an American invention, it became a massive hit in Britain during the 1960s. Instant photography felt almost magical. Take a picture, wait a moment, and watch the image appear. It encouraged creativity, especially during festivals, gatherings, and seaside trips. It also made photography more immediate and accessible. No waiting for film development. No wondering whether a shot came out properly. For young people experiencing the excitement of 60s culture, the Polaroid camera was a perfect companion, capturing moments that felt fun, spontaneous, and full of life. 2. The cassette tape recorder. Cassettes arrived in Britain in the mid-60s and quickly changed how people experienced sound. Tape recorders allowed families to capture their own voices, record BBC radio shows, or save favorite songs. Students used them for schoolwork. Parents used them to preserve messages from relatives abroad. Musicians used them to capture early ideas. This gadget gave everyday people more control over their audio environment, long before digital recording took over. Affordable, portable, and surprisingly reliable, cassette recorders became one of the decade's most influential pieces of technology. 1. The fully automatic washing machine. By the end of the 60s, Britain witnessed a domestic revolution, the rise of fully automatic washing machines. No more soaking, hand scrubbing, or manual wringing. A single button transformed a heavy chore into a smooth, unattended process. Women who often carried the burden of laundry gained precious time and freedom. Families found their routines easier, and Britain's idea of modern home living shifted permanently. This was the decade when washing stopped being an all-day activity and became something you could leave to a machine. A quiet, powerful transformation that shaped the modern household. These 15 genius British gadgets from the 1960s that transformed everyday life show how timeless ideas often start with simple improvements. They made daily routines smoother, saved families time, and sparked excitement for the future. Even today, many of these inventions still shape how British homes work. Thank you for watching this video. Please don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell.